Hello.
Hey there.
Let me lower this. Hold on just a sec. There we go. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you this new year?
I'm well, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
It's gonna be a really interesting 2023, I think.
Why do you feel that way?
Um, I just think so many things are coming out into the light,
Mm,
and we are living in such interesting times
hmm
because over the last, few years, people seem to just not know what to believe anymore.
hmm
Um, the famous fake news came into um, everybody's word dictionary. I never heard that before,
Right.
and now it seems like the world has divided into people who uh, believe certain things and people who just completely refuse to look at the possibility that something could be real
Mm,
or not. So it's I think there's a lot of confusion in the mind right
hmm
now because of what we're hearing from every place. And people literally just don't know what to believe. And that makes a bit of an insecurity in people's minds. And, and then you start concentrating too much on your mind when what we really want to do is connect with our hearts and feel with our hearts
hmm
what feels to be truth or not. Because, like in this time of internet and of information and so much is thrown at us that we are going into this intense intellectual sifter where we're trying to sift the truth from the non-truths, and everybody seems to have proof for everything that they're saying, and so it's a hard time, and that tends to keep us in our intellect, in our minds. And when we are beings that were created of pure love,
mm,
the
yeah.
truth is in more getting out of our minds and feeling our body, getting into your heart, into your lower center, connecting with the planet, connecting, getting barefoot and going out in nature and
Mhm.
looking at the skies and wonder like this crazy, beautiful blue. I can't stand, like, I stare at it for so long because it's almost like I want to eat it with my eyes. It's so beautiful. And, I think that if we made it a practice, um, every single day, even if for 5 minutes, you know, even if it's cold. Well, I know it can be really cold, but if you can take off your shoes and put your feet on the ground and then just, just think this planet because it is your home, and without it, you couldn't experience any of this amazing experience that we're having. We came into these bodies and we are filtering, and everything is going through our senses.
Mm.
And that's such a deep thing. We take it for granted because that's all we know, but it is an amazing, amazing gift. So all this to say, happy 2023.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for that. And just so I understand, it's Ada. How do
Ada,
you pronounce it?
Ada.
Ada.
Mhm.
Where does that originate?
Well, I was born and raised in Peru.
Okay.
Um, to My family has been in Peru for over 200 years, long before World War One, even.
Mm,
So we are an amalgam of a lot of Europeans that came to Peru very early on during the gold rush and the God knows what, and so I'm very Peruvian at heart.
Mhm.
because, we dance salsa and we eat ceviche. But I have lived here since right after high school, and I've lived around the world actually, not just in the US. But um, so I don't, feel like I go home every year and I'm very connected with my family, but I feel like I'm a citizen of the world, but
Mhm.
I'm born and raised in Peru and yeah, nice deep Peruvian roots from the coast.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you're in Peru now. You said you've lived here.
I'm in Florida now. I
Oh,
live in Florida. And I have
okay,
lived in the US on and off. I've lived in Hawaii, I've lived in Switzerland, I've lived around, and but I've been here for a while now. So this has been my main home.
okay. That is so interesting. I've never been to Peru myself, but my mother told me years ago that I'm part Jamaican, Panamanian, and Peruvian.
No way!
Yeah.
I love it. Wow, Jamaican, Panamanian, and Peruvian.
Hmm.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love that. What a great mix. So what's your favorite food? I know that you don't need a lot.
No, so I would love to go and just not really for the food, but just for the landscape. I would love to see, what it looks like. I just love to be in that, and it would be a first time for me.
It is so beautiful. And at the same time not, there's a lot of parts that are dry, like Lima is in a desert land. So they said in the old times, they said that when the Spaniards came, Cusco was the great empire. That's right where near Machu Picchu. Like to go to Machu Picchu, you have to go to Cusco. And the Incas at the time, the culture there, they were quite smart and quite advanced.
Mhm.
So when the Spaniards showed up, they started telling them that, oh, Lima is heaven. Lima is the greatest thing ever. Lima, Lima, Lima. Everybody talked to the Spaniards about the wonders of Lima. So the Spaniards who were in Cusco, Machu Picchu, which is magical, magical land, they said, and it's not like back in those days you took a plane ride and you were in Lima, right? No, they were for days and weeks and, ferrying these great mountains and rivers and, altitude like crazy. And they finally get to Lima, and Lima is like desert. It's horrible. It is cloudy. It's like a London, but on board of in front of the water. So they actually kind of plotted that. They kind of want to mess with them. I just thought it was such an amazing, and that's what I was told. Nobody really knows if it's true, right? But this is how the empire ended up being based in Lima, which is the capital of Peru, which is desert land and cloudy and foggy 90% of the year.
Mm.
So don't go to Lima.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, I'll take that recommendation. It
Yeah.
seems Ada, it seems like you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to history.
Uh, Not really. I tended to really not pay attention in history at school. It really drove me nuts for some reason. As an adult, I've learned a lot, and lately I've learned that so much of our history is actually not true. So
Mm.
much of our history is actually fixed. Like the powers that be decide what goes into the books.
Mm.
And then I wonder if this is why I had a natural rejection for history when I was in school,
Okay. Okay.
right? Yeah.
So you had a natural rejection of it when you were in school, but then later on, did you
hmm
develop a newfound love for it, or appreciation for it? What was it that drove you to learn more?
It's more, if I had a middle name, I would call myself Truth Seeker. I have always had this incredible hunger for the truth.
Mm.
And I've always been quite intuitive where I feel like, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. And so then I will look further. I am so far from the person that listens to the news and just swallows what is being given to them. Um, I'm always questioning why. And even as a teenager, I used to say, if God came from the skies and told me, you need to do this because this is what, and it didn't feel right to me, I would stare at him in the face and say no, because I've always weighted my own truth in my heart.
Mm.
And so, yeah, and, it served me well.
Hmm. Hmm. So you would say your heart is where you feel that intuition, is that where it comes from, or when things pass over you? Because I love your description when you use your word. You choose your words so wisely. You're like, I had a hunger for truth, hunger for knowledge, and then also I don't swallow, the things that come my way. So when things come your way, where do you feel it in your body when it comes to trusting your intuition?
It's really hard to explain, but about 10 to 12 years ago, I realized that it felt kind of like as if I had a direct internet connection with my source. Seriously, it was like a one-way line. And that I would ask a question and the answer would come. And it's not like I heard it out of the skies. No, it's like somehow the knowledge came to me and it just materialized within me somehow. And so I always feel like, and I tell everybody this isn't just me. This is, I know, because I've been watching you and you are so connected. And what a beautiful, I looked at your, is it Qigong today? I'm really new to Insta. I've only been here like 2 months. So I'm a newbie in this world. And I didn't even know that. I mean, I don't even know how I discovered you. I think one of my friends turned me on to you, but it's a gem. What you do is beautiful. And then at 11, I saw you, and it looked like qigong. Was that qigong? Yeah. And I love qigong. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know you did this. Do you do this every day at 11?
We've been doing it. We've been doing it consistently, and it's no coincidence because we do have the trends. We know Devon, the Black Airbender. We know Victoria. We know Based in the Plants. So Gerald, we know him as well. So you're coming from the same circle that I just started to frequent.
Yes, it was Ron who got me into that circle and who introduced me. And I'm so thankful for that because I had no idea. I am actually in a group of people that are absolutely outside of Insta and mainstream anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they're incredibly intelligent and wise and etc. And then I met Ron who introduced me and he told me, it's like, follow this, follow that, follow that, follow that. And I was like, okay. And then, boom, all of a sudden, I came into Insta because I opened my company, which is EMF Fortress, which is EMF mitigation products that I used to own a holistic pet store here in Florida, and it was very successful. And then with COVID, just too many people coming in, coughing all over the place. It was a little bit too much. So after 11 years, I closed. And I said, I don't just want to cross my arms and do nothing. I want to affect the world in a positive way. And the only way for me to live my life is doing something that is helping this change, which is coming about at turtle speed, the speed of a turtle. So it's just moving really slowly. And that's because I believe that all the new stuff that we are about to be faced with, it takes a lot of responsibility and a lot of integrity in each person's heart to be able to deal with the technology that's coming ahead. The technology that's coming ahead that we are in the brink of opening up to is going to be revolutionary in the best or the worst of ways. And that's going to be up to us because it can be so dangerous. And just as they say, with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. with great technology comes great responsibility, because things can be moved into one end or the other polarity. And we really need to be so careful. And I think that a lot of the reason why we've kind of been on standby in this like no man's land in this last couple of years, we're still moving where we want to go as a humanity, but we're still going ever so slowly. And that's because we need to have a lot of we need to be in team humanity. We need to stop with the divide and conquer that has been ruling us for as long as the history books know. I mean, we've been fighting wars in the name of race and religion forever. Why? Like, do we not realize that we are one planet? Do we not realize that when we decimate the neighbor, we're decimating ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, how could you harm your brother and think it's okay? Because that's your brother, you know? So I just think in general, as a humanity, we're in a pivotal point, and we need to start gaining that ethics within ourselves, because I see it even in the spiritual world where there's a lot of selfishness. It's like, oh no, these are my followers. Oh no, these are this is how I monetize, and this is how, and the thing is, we are in this together. And yes, of course, there's a way of monetizing, and everybody does need to make money to survive. But all these new inventions that are coming about, you need to have the right intention in place. You know, with my products, I decided, okay, so I know that technology is amazing. My phone allows me to be talking to you, Jerome, whom I've never met, and where are you in the country?
In a small state called Texas.
Texas. Okay, beautiful. So I have been to Texas, but you know, technology is allowing me and you to reach hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Technology is so beautiful because we can spread the love, and we can spread the wisdom, the awareness, the everything, right? But at the same time, it's that technology that if we decide to create from a space of limitation, you know, like, oh, there's only so much to go around, so I don't want to, that just that on space will literally put a damper on the creation of the of whatever's being created in order to share the world within the healing community. You know, the healing community has a huge responsibility right now because they're the leaders of that catharsis that's coming through. And the more followers somebody has, the more responsibility they have to put out that message of togetherness, of unity, of sharing, of love, and instead of like hoarding, right? So I'm seeing a little bit. I'm really amazed at the beauty of the Instagram space that I had no idea. I always thought it was just, you know, people looking at hot makeup tips and, you know, how beautiful your life is. And and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this group of beautiful, amazing people that are spreading healing and so much goodness. And, you know, we need to just go out there and continue with this. So yeah, it's just, it's a really it's a really special time, and it's time for us to join together and be like, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do to help others. In my case, with the technology, with the EMFs, with the things that, you know, right now I'm talking to you, but my phone is about a yard and a half away from me. I don't want my phone right up to my nose. That's not good for me. We have meters that, somewhere in there, we have a meter that you can measure the pulsations that your phone emits, and that's not good for you. You want to be a little bit further away, because, you know, I have a capacity pen, you know, that is bamboo, so it doesn't transmit the electricity to my hand. So when I'm touching my phone, I'm using the tip of this, which you can write perfectly. It has an ink cartridge, but I don't use it. And then the bamboo part is what's really making it not transfer the electricity, because most of them are painted aluminum. Well, the painted aluminum is still transmitting some level to your hand. So we don't want to electrify our bodies. We want to ground our bodies, which is what the earth does. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to do something with my life next. And I want to work in ways that ethically can bring these products into the world that are going to help our bodies. Because when we help our temple, and your body's the temple, then you inside your soul, whatever you want to call it, gets to be able to be in communion with your source, and therefore you see the truth, you identify the truth, you're able to discern, and you don't have to worry anymore about fake news and crazy and fact checkers. None of that. It's all Big Brother anyway. It's all like this one entity that is making you think that there's many different entities, but there's only one behind, right? We need to be able to see that. And that discernment is going to come from you keeping your temple clean, eating clean food, fasting, connecting to your planet, and then connecting to your source. And then automatically you will know the truth. You will know what's right for you. You will know what to take as a next step.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for that breakdown. That's the whole message. We need this testimony today, especially like you said, with the advent of so many new technologies. Love what you said, Ahda, about team humanity. Team humanity. We're on the same, and just realizing that we're all together. They say that we may not have it all together, but together have it all. So just understanding that. And as well, earlier when you were talking about going away from the head space, coming back to the heart space, you mentioned a few things like getting out into nature, grounding, doing multiple things that we can do, like different modalities, different methods. What are some ways that you feel or that you're hopeful for in the future that will maybe be a technology and nature? Like, how can there be a balance of both worlds?
Wow. Well, I tell you, yesterday was, and today are idyllic days here in Florida. I don't know the temperature, but it's probably like 85 out. And I was at the beach yesterday with my brother and his wife, and they're visiting here. And it was such a beautiful day, no wind, just gorgeous. Yet all of a sudden we look up and there's these trails in the sky and these lines in the sky. And my brother, who is not as connected as I am, I was telling him, I go, look at that. That a cloud has never been like that. If you look at pictures of the sky from 30 years ago and 40 years ago and even 20 years ago, you didn't see these. And all of a sudden now you're seeing these trails that take very strange shapes. And my brother is like, oh no, that's the condensation of a plane, because my brother is like he's in a clean air, whatever, is in California. So he's really connected with the air world, right? It is in air conditioning and refrigeration, but clean air. And he's like, well, that's a condensation, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay. And then, I try to change his mind. I can't. And then all of a sudden, like 30 minutes later, the trail was going straight in front of me, all the way down and all the way back, but literally like in front of me, directly in front of me, on top of me. And then all of a sudden, like 20 minutes later, I look up and that thing that was on top of me was like 20 degrees to the right, and it had not come undone. It became bigger, wider, but it hadn't come undone. And then the two that were behind my brother that were smaller had completely changed. And then I tell my brother, I go, what kind of condensation is that? Because if that was a condensation of a plane, it would have vanished by now in half an hour. Yet, not only did it not vanish, it managed to keep the same structure. It just became wider, and it's moved. It's still there. And then an hour later, it was still there. It just kept moving and doing these weird things, changing the shape. And I was like, and all of a sudden, my brother went silent because he has explanations for everything. All of a sudden, he was silent, you know? And then I played him a little video that I'd seen on YouTube about it. And so to me, my biggest wish is that the air is clean enough for me to breathe when I go outside, because I love being outside. But I want to know, if we vote as voters, we vote people in office and they work for us, because they are not the bosses, they work for us. Who in this planet, who in this state knows what is up there exactly? Knows what that is, why it's there, what it's for, and if we don't agree with it, why the heck aren't we kicking this out? Because I would love to know what those things are in the why isn't the news talking about what's up in my air? What is up in my air? Why are there dead fish in the shoreline in the morning? What's going on with that? Why isn't anyone talking about it? And then the people who are so faithful to the news, you need to write to your anchors and be like, hey, why is it that certain things I'm interested in this. What is it exactly? And is there a responsibility on who's talking to us in that box? And that is this really what's going on? So yeah, my biggest yearning is to see nature unadulterated. It's for man to stop raping his own planet. And for us to treat this earth with the reverence that we should be treating it, because it is our home. And without our home, we got nowhere to go. We're blessed to be on this planet. This is so beautiful. It's ridiculous. Like when you go to the Grand Canyon and, like New Zealand and, oh my gosh, Hawaii, Molokai, Kauai, like the beauty of this planet is mind-blowing. We're so blessed and lucky to have this gem of a planet, and we need to really take care of it.
Yes, I agree. And do you in your imagination, in your mind's eye, you envision that possibility for us in the coming days, even with the advent of newer technology? Can you see that coming together?
I do. I actually think that's where we're going to end up. Now, whether it's all going to depend on how quickly that we awaken as a species, right, in general. Like we have, I think, a pretty good number that's awake. But again, the masses need to awaken, because we need to be able to handle the amazing technology. And right now, we are worshiping the dollar god. The dollar has become our god. And as long as we worship the dollar as our god, then we are going to be selfish. There's going to be a culture of limitation. Okay, more for me, less for you, because there's so much around. So I think that as long as we don't embrace that, we're gonna be stuck in a rut of limitation. Then all of a sudden we're creating these like famous med beds. I think that what's out there is not really truly, because no technology, see, we put so much emphasis on intelligence, right? What can be created up here, but nothing can be created up here in perfect and complete coherence without the heart. So, because the heart, people think the heart is a pump. The heart is not just a pump. As a matter of fact, the heart is a rather ineffective pump when you look at a lot of the physiology of it. The heart is the core of your brain, is the core of your source. The heart is intelligent. It's intelligent. So when we really connect to the heart and we create from a space of the heart and a space of inclusiveness, of love, like what is your true motivation beyond about what you're doing, right? What behind what you're doing? What is your true motivation? And that is going to be the propulsor. I don't know if that word exists. I have speak a few languages, and sometimes I make up a word propulsor. Does that make sense? The launcher, you know what I mean? Like that's going to be the impulse that is going to direct your invention, to create. You're only going to be able to create as pure of a product as the purity of our hearts. The purity of our hearts, the purity of our intention is going to give birth to the next wave of evolution and an evolutionary product.
I'm getting chills. Wow, like just as speaking, I'm getting goosebumps, Ada. I'm reminded of inventors that we hear throughout time, throughout history, like Nikola Tesla. People must have somehow tapped into the purity of the heart to be able to. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Look about Nikola Tesla. The man lived and died poor. Okay? Now, he didn't, I don't know about living poor, but I do know that he died poor and alone in his place. And granted, the reason why he was poor is because Edison, or I can't remember who now, basically made him a really bad deal and stole his inventions and credited whatever, right? But Tesla, his greatest invention and his what he really wanted is to give free energy to the world. That means this man was actually connected to his heart. He understood unity, and he was not at all greedy. He was a man, only from that space can you connect and can you truly embody greatness. You know what I mean? Because it's in that space of unconditional love for your brother that you're able to connect to your source, which will give you all the answers. There will be no interference.
Wow. Wow. So it's like we have all we need. Let go of greed.
Absolutely. Let go of greed, but let go of the illusion of separation.
Okay.
And that's the hardest thing for me, because we are like a hand, right? And each person is a different being. But when one finger is not working, the whole hand gets affected. And right now, because of the mighty God, the dollar, or the yen, or the whatever, right? We are like, and they've sold us this dream that in order to be happy, in order to have it all, we need these amazing houses and this, I mean, look at it. We worship these TV stars who it's all about the external. But what's inside of a human being is way more important. And I mean, we have kind of brainwashed humanity into believing that external things to you are what are going to bring you happiness and completion and joy. And the big problem about this, same thing with beauty, the big problem about this is there will always be somebody richer and there will always be somebody more beautiful. So don't hang into that for your happiness, A. But B, and most importantly, what to me, what brings me the most happiness is to have inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
Without inner peace, nothing really matters, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you're waking up a rack of nerves because you're worried that you're going to lose it all, or if you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't, and you can be poor as well, but if you're living, okay, you got to have a little decent weather. If you're going to be poor, you need to have a good environment around you, because it would be really hard to go to a harsh winter if you don't have heating. But truth is that, there was a book a long time ago that I read. Did you read Power versus Force from David Hawkins? it talked about the emotions and how different emotions had different frequencies. And the neutrality came at 200. To make a perfect example, like for example, the emotions go between 1 and 1,000. And for example, the emotion of jealousy might be 50. The emotion of fear might be 80. The emotion of apathy might be 100, right? And then, for example, joy is 500. Peace is 600. Love is 400, I believe. And just to give you an example, right? And the neutrality is 200. And about 15 years ago, we, as a humanity, for the very first time, we reached neutrality. Meaning, below neutrality, it's really hard to be happy because you are still threatened by existence, by, if you're living in fear, it's hard to be happy. If you're living in jealousy, it's hard to be happy, right? So when you reach the neutrality, which I forget what emotion it was, but it was 200, then all of a sudden you have all the positive emotions. This is a great, interesting book, and you can even Google the chart of the emotions by David Hawkins. And as a humanity, we reached 200 about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And once we reach 200 as a humanity, all of a sudden, we can all, as a humanity, start going into the upper levels. And all of a sudden, we can, and an avatar is 1,000. So avatar is 1,000. Once you reach 1,000, you don't really need to be here anymore. We're all students otherwise, right? And so it's really beautiful when you think about that. And you're like, now we're reaching these levels, and now it is our responsibility to share that and to bring people up, because it's through these conversations that people are thinking and pondering and opening up their minds to new horizons, to new possibilities. I didn't know these things existed 20 years ago, right? And how beautiful is that? And look what a beautiful platform we can use to reach out to thousands of people, hopefully, and be like, wow, planting a seed, planting a seed to your brother so that you can see this germinate forever, because their descendants will be affected because of that thought that was planted in their head. How beautiful is
Yes. Yes, I agree. I never knew that, Ada. You're putting me in a whole field. Like, you're really, this is completely new territory. Say, love is 400, peace 600.
Love is 400. As a matter of fact, in the book, I don't know where it is, I gave it to someone, and in the book they were talking about, I don't want to get the people mixed up. I believe that, I think it might have been Einstein that was right below love, and it was Carl Jung that was measuring about 500. And they were saying you can see their work, and how, I believe it was Einstein that they were talking about. I read this book, I've read it twice, but the last time I read it was about 14 years ago. So, but they were saying that Einstein didn't break the ceiling of love, and so his studies had the limitation of not having love in the game, while Young, who I believe the 10 steps, the whole AA movement was modeled after or something like that. I don't know much about it, but I thought it was somehow like Young had broken that ceiling, and so his work was that much more enlightened, because although they were both amazing people, the inventors, creators, thinkers, and so there's like a perfect example of comparing two geniuses who one stayed below and one above, and you can see through their work how that transpired in their activities and their teachings.
Yes, and even the ripple effect throughout humanity, throughout team humanity. So if we've all agreed or arrived already at the point of neutrality, you perceive that there will be a time where we all reach.
Absolutely. If we reached neutrality a long time ago already, and you can see in the last 20 years, you can see a huge uptake in the world of healing, the world of spirituality. I mean, it all began with, first yoga became really popular. And through yoga, what is yoga? It's not a way to connect the body with the soul, right? To not a way to connect quietness in the mind, quietness in that intellect who's constantly telling you and bombarding you with information. And what is yoga if not a way to get you to start breathing, right? And slowing down and connecting you to your inner being, which in turn opens up the door gates to connect to your source. And yoga started really strong when I was living on Maui, which is, well, that's when it began. But so yoga became really strong, I would say, wouldn't you say in the 90s?
Mm.
I don't know, the year 2000s. That's when it started really getting strong. No, yeah, right after the turn probably, but it became strong, and then meditation, and then all of these. We didn't have 20 years ago. We didn't have all these huge communities of people like you and Devon, and like I. Amazing how there's a call coming in. So it's all new in a lot of ways, but the fact to me that there's been an explosion of um, of people that are coming out, and that means there's a demand for it, right? If there's no demand, then it comes and disappears. But the fact that there's a demand for it is that people are hungry for answers. People are hungry for growth. They're hungry for connection. They're hungry for the truth. And they know that somehow the truth that they're reading is not the whole story, that there's something more. And it's that motivation and that hunger for that connection where we're all heading, because this is the age of is it the age of Pisces now? I don't know. Aquarius. My mother's into all these things. And if you really think about it, like everything is coming out to the light, right? There's revelations happening all the time. And we have to think when we see this news and we see people are telling us things, or not even in the news, but in some disclosures and whatever. And then you're like, oh, that's just that sounds like a movie. That can't be. That's they're laughing at it. And a lot of the times we're like, I really wonder what part of that is true. And you have to really pay attention to things that seem too crazy to be true, because sometimes they are. So you just have to be open to it and just don't shut things down, but just pay attention, feel them in your heart, and do not support those that are taking from the earth, that are just taking. Because why are we supporting companies that are harming us? Why? We are keeping them alive by giving them our money, right? So we need to be discerning of people where we're giving our dollar. You want to give your support to the companies that are truly working for your best interest. So, yeah.
Wow. One thing that I enjoy about you, and this is our first interaction like that, but I already enjoy your curiosity, endless curiosity. It's almost like childlike, and it just goes on. You ask questions, and there's a saying like, when you know why, you can accomplish how, when you understand. And I hear you asking, why this, why that, why is that up there? What is that? What are those? When you had asked those questions in earlier days, you said that sometimes that whenever you would ask, there would be something that would materialize within you. How did it materialize? Was it in the form of knowing? How did you feel that?
You know, it shows up in my mind, just like somehow as if I read it somewhere. When I ask a question, then I get the idea, like it pops. Sometimes it pops right away, and sometimes it's a combination of, um, I ask the question with my mind, but with the curiosity of a child, with the innocent perception of a child. Because that you need to cultivate that the one thing nobody can ever take away from you is your perception, right? We choose our perception, and I choose to live my life, and I'm proven wrong a lot. There are times when I say something and I'm like, oops, I was wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong, because I am a student, nevertheless. So I always just ask with innocent perception. I'm always open to receive the answer. And I always find a teaching moment. Every day I learn something new. And sometimes those learnings come in a difficult manner, right? And sometimes it's an unpleasant teaching. It's an unpleasant moment, but it teaches me something new. It's so different, but it begins with your mind, always followed, accompanied by innocent perception and desire to see the truth.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Earlier you were touching on your awakening, and you were talking about how more people need to awaken, for us to keep going up the charts, up the levels to love, to peace, to avatar. I want to learn what is avatar, what does that say? But for us to get there, that there needs to be more awakenings happening. You had your awakening. First of all, when was it that you feel you awakened? And what was that like for anybody who's felt like they never had that kind of awakening? How would you describe it?
Oh, well, that's really interesting. I lived a certain life my whole life. And then when I was in my early 20s on Maui, um, really the only difficult thing that happened to me in my life happened. And it was a shock. It was really a shock. And it sunk me into the most difficult months of my life. And it was a result of that. Like if I had to live my life all over again, I would repeat that, because out of the greatest difficulty came the greatest rebirth. So I always say to people, some of us come, with easier lessons and harder lessons to learn. We don't know. There's so much that is a mystery. But I think that sometimes, when something difficult happens in your life, some sort of a difficulty, a strong trauma or something like that, you have two choices. You can be like, poor me, why? Or you can be like, depending on how difficult that was, you have to cope and you got to lick your wounds for a little while, because you need to be able to see clearly and think, right? But you need, at some point, once you regain yourself, then you need to um, to to learn from it, to grow from it, to what did this moment teach me? What did I learn? Because see, I look at life like, for example, you go to a shop, say you want this precious toy, that costs you a lot of money. And then, so you work all these, you work, and then you have all the money you need. You go to the shop, you buy it, and then you leave the money on the counter and you take your beautiful toy. Okay. So when something bad happens to you, you can equate the pain that you endure, that you go through, as the money that you are working hard to save, right, for the toy. And so that's the pain. So when you suffer, and then you're licking your wounds and you're getting better, and so you're saving all that money, right? Then if you don't go and give that money and you take your gift, so when you're suffering, it's the money, but then if you don't work at taking the precious teaching that this experience brought you. It's like you left the gift on the counter. It's like you worked all this to make all this money with all this pain and all this licking your blah, blah, blah. Then you go in, you live it, and you walk away. So you endured the harshness, the difficulty, but you didn't reap the benefit. You just got the wounds now, and you got nothing to show for it. And that, to me, I equated that a long time ago. And I was like, so I realized that no pain is not a gift. Pain somehow, now that doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with masochism or perpetuation of pain, because this is when people, that's a whole other conversation, but this is when people cling to their story of pain, identify with that story, and never move past. And that's not good either, because again, that's like never move past saving the money, saving, and never spending it, and never enjoying it, and never loving it. Well, what kind of life is that, right? So in a perfect balanced world, you work, you reap your benefit, you take your teaching. Same thing. So when you go and you pay with your hard tears and sweat that this difficulty has brought you into your life, there comes the moment when it's time to let go of the pain. Even if it was you, even if you caused it for someone else, even if it tore you apart, there comes a moment when the pain is no longer useful for anybody, and you need to just trade it for the beautiful teaching. It made you a greater human being. It made you more sensitive. It made you more aware, more compassionate. It taught you that you're not invincible. It taught you compassion. I mean, there's wisdom you embody. We are usually born anew from the ashes of a difficulty or a trauma. Every time you're born anew, every time you open up your eyes and you wake up in the morning. So why not take this opportunity every day and say, I'm so glad that I'm alive. This miraculous symphony of a body that I am, that, because if my heart wasn't, ticking just at the right moment, and my brain neurons weren't firing just at the right moment, and my lungs were not expanding and contracting just at the right moment, if none of this amazing symphony was taking place, I would not be here right now. I am a freaking walking miracle. I am a walking freaking miracle. And I will live my life as such.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like I feel like I feel like there's a standing ovation, like oh my gosh,
Oh my God, I just got out there. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm hinged right now.
100%, 100% it, So I love this. And I love your passion, that energy comes through. The energy is transferred, and it's so interesting that you deal with energy and you work with energy, because you have energy all throughout you. It's flowing and it's growing. So, when you said like it's like our pain is the payment, but it's like the lesson, the gift, and if we don't take the lesson or the teaching, then it's like, what did we do? We just left it there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
take the gift. Take the gift.
Okay.
If you don't take the gift, you saved your money. You worked hard for it. You paid the dues. You paid the price, and you didn't reap the benefit. And believe me when I tell you, there's great benefit always. A perfect example of it. Do you remember about Elizabeth Smart? Elizabeth Smart is this beautiful young girl who was kidnapped and was held by, I don't know, many months, if not years. I don't think many years, but I think a lot of months. And I mean, she was captive. She endured the most difficult time. I mean, not the most difficult time, but a terrible, terrible time by a couple that captured her. And I mean, if you look at her today, she was such an inspiration when I listened to her talk. This beautiful, she's now married, she has babies, she's probably in her late 20s.
Mhm.
And there's an amazing inspiration of a woman who endured the most difficulties, the greatest difficulties, and that came out and did not let her essence be muddied by this, by what happened to her. And
Mhm.
it took courage, great courage, Jerome, in healing. People don't want to heal. People are, they just want to hold on to their story. Not all of it, but a lot of people believe, somehow identify with the wound, and they have a really hard time moving past it. And it is so important that we move past our wounds, because our wounds are our greatest teachers. And if we don't move past them, then we're creating this neural pathway in our brains, and we are victimizing ourselves over and over again by the same wound, sometimes taking the face of a different person. But it's the same wound just coming right back at you every single time, trying to give you the opportunity for healing.
Mhm.
Because in the body, we are in this eternal quest to merge with our source. But we can't merge with our source unless we are close in energy, right? We really need to, like, we need to, you can't mix water and oil, right? So we're constantly trying to move up. And if we don't do that, then we're stuck. We're stuck in this, like, little lower space, and we're constantly looking. And this is why then so many people are obsessed with, looking at the beautiful rich people on the TV, because they get to escape who they are and what's inside of them by focusing on riches that they do not have, and living that, vicariously living through other people, while they're completely ignoring their own temple and their own connection to their source, which is perfect and unique if only they opened up to it.
Right, right. I, and and I'm reminded as well when you talk about the rich and that comparison game that we often play that kind of robs us of our own joy. When we externalize and we're looking for happiness on the outside and in external things. One of my good friends told me, Ada, they said that rich is like an acronym for realizing I create happiness, you know? And like, what is rich? What is wealth? It comes from inside. You have a wealth in you. Just like we see that you have this wealth of knowledge, you have wealth of knowing, but you also have this wealth of questions. You're a student of life. You're constantly expanding. So I just really enjoy this, and I just enjoy having conversations. And this is just the first time, like you've never, I mean, this is our first time together. And you said that you were inspired as well by seeing someone else do the same thing.
You and Victoria, I listened to that talk a couple of weeks ago. I just came home, and I don't know why I put Insta, because it's Ron is Modern Mind Explorer. He had turned me on to you guys, and I went in, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's happening on Insta. What's happening with my page, because it's a baby page, right? It's a new one. And then you popped up on a live, and I was like, what's that? And click, and I was making a sandwich, and I started listening. And both of you, what struck me about you and Victoria, first of all, you had this beautiful rapport, you have this beautiful energy, both of you. And, there were gems dropped, and that were really beautiful. And I was like, huh. So I went outside to the back where there's like a trampoline, and I'm like, I finally listened to the whole thing. And because you guys had already started, later on, I actually went and listened to the beginning of it, because it was just really beautiful. And that inspired me to do my first live with a friend of mine, who is in Germany. She's
Jenny,
from Argentina. She's a
right?
gift psychologist. You need to talk to her too. She's fantastic.
Was it Jenny?
Jenny Garay, and she's a really gifted psychologist. She has like a zillion degrees, and she's in Israel today. But we're on the internet. It doesn't matter where you are. But So we always have these talks, these beautiful talks, and with through whatever ways. And then she was like, "I want to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast of our conversations. They're awesome." And then all of a sudden, because I discovered Insta, that is kind of like a podcast, I was like, "Let's do it on Insta." And she's like, "Okay, but I don't want my face on it." That's fine. We don't have to put our faces. And so we had our first, and because I admire you so much, I sent you the talk. So I don't know if I hadn't sent it to you, may have never known. And so I sent you the talk, and then I imagine you listened to it, and then you're like, "I want to talk to you." So this is my first talk ever. I'm a newbie.
Wow. Well, even if you're a newbie, you are definitely not new to this. You are true to, you are so comfortable, in front of this. Like, you are so giving,
Thank
like they say, that's the secret to living is giving. And you're giving so much, you have so much passion, so much enthusiasm. And if I had one more question for you, Ada, before we conclude this, I would love to ask, earlier you were talking about awakening through, trials and tribulations and adversity. And of course, the saying like, no mud, no lotus, or no pressure, no diamond. So do you think that it's possible for someone to have an awakening without that level of adversity?
I only know the life that I have lived. And the truth of the matter is that the first 20 years of my life, I had very, very little adversity. So, and I still was already awakened. I mean, I would have these conversations with my mother when I was 12 years old in Peru. We had deep, deep, deep philosophical conversations. I was the baby of five, and my mother says no, none of the other kids had these conversations with her. Why are there, I lived in Peru, so there's a lot of poverty in Peru. And I was like, why is it that through the lottery of childbirth, one gets to have money and comfort and education, and another one is barefoot asking for food on the street? Like I was already asking these questions when I was 11 and 12 years old. So I had, I do think that, for whatever reason, everybody comes with a purpose and with a reason. And like my friend Jenny very well corrected me, some lessons are meant to be waxed over the head, and some lessons are meant to be gentle. And I think that, I don't really understand, and I don't know much all that about karma, but I think that we do come in with a certain level of awakening.
Mm.
And that occurs when you're born. You already have a particular level of awakening. But remember that through the miracle of birth, we forget everything. We go on the other side of the veil. We don't know anything. We forget everything. And it's remembrance, right? Members. You got to bring all the members of you back into unity in this life. And then it's like you're awakening every little gem inside of you. And sometimes, maybe the people that are really head on and they get all the lessons right away and they don't need a whack over the head. Sometimes people need a whack over the head. I think there are people, I've known people who were amazing teachers, and that, I don't know the details, but I don't think they ever had really horrible things happen to them or anything like that. So I really don't know, but I think everybody's experience is different. Everybody comes with a different, I suppose, call it karma. And but I think that in this, for sure, I believe that the more willingness and openness you have to getting the lessons without being whacked over the head by some action, the easier life becomes for you.
Mm.
The more we are, the more we're tightening up, the famous what you resist persists, or like when you're letting go of a rope, you're in like a thing and you're climbing down a rope. If you held on to that rope really, really tight, your hands are going to be wrapped raw. But if you really let go and trust, then you're not going to be, to maybe the landing might be a little bit hard, but you're going to be able to end up being So a lot of times it's like that, like not holding on too tight and then asking for help, because when things get difficult, I remember that when my father died, it was very expected that he would die. And I thought I was so ready. Yet when it happened, I literally feel like somebody had blown a hole out of my chest. And I was like, why do I feel like this? I mean, I knew better. My mind knew better. Like, and I needed to go to somebody who did energy work, and they reconnected me. And I almost immediately felt the energy flow again. So we do need somebody to come in when we're in a space where we have lost homeostasis, where we've lost ourselves. We do need help to reconnect the pieces. Sometimes we need this to borrow onto the spark of someone else that willingly and lovingly comes in and shares the spark again, to give us that little push of light so that we can regain ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully put. Oh my goodness. Oh man. Ah, geez, Louis, your words, like there's so much in them, you know. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for reconnecting, for sharing that spark, you know, for reigniting us, for reawakening humanity, team humanity. And I can't wait to see where you go from here. You said you've only been here for 2 months, you said, on this thing. And look at already the light you're shining, you know. They say all it takes is one candle to light a whole room of candles, you know. So you are that light. Thank you.
Well, you are a candle too, and I don't know, 2 months. I mean, I started my brand about 6 months ago, so time flies really fast. So I don't, but it's been just months. But it's really, really, really new. I mean, my Instagram page is, I don't know, maybe, I don't 2, 4 months old. I don't know. So yeah, and and thank God that I found you guys. If I hadn't found you guys, I probably would be unknown in Instagram still, you know?
Well, we're all finding each other, you know, we're all coming together, and that synergy is strengthening. It's getting stronger and stronger. I feel it.
Indeed, indeed. And I will continue these conversations with Jenny. We're going to try to make them once a week. Now, she being a psychologist, I love it because she gets to correct me when I say something. She's like, well, no, and I love it that we're like that. And because she comes from a more psychological background, then I can actually be like, well, you're not saying that. And I like that because I learn from Jenny all the time, but we are very different and we have very different styles. So I think it's kind of a good combination, but I'm just so thankful that you gave me this opportunity, Jerome. Thank you so much. I love it.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And just right before we go, would you, who, if this is their first encounter with you, would you let them know a little bit about EMF, where they can find your products, grab your merchandise, they have to expect?
Sure, sure. So my page is EMF, as in electromagnetic frequency, so EMF Fortress. And you can, send me messages there. Definitely join us because we're going to have lives regularly. And yeah, I'm basically really, really trying to infuse the EMF protection space with transparency and with ethics, so that, one of the things that we have is that we created replaceable liners, because it's a moving target, the cell phones and all that, they're constantly getting stronger, and the antennas are getting stronger, and everything is moving. So a lot of times you get a product and then 6 months later it doesn't work anymore because everything gets stronger. So we created these liners for very little money, that once you buy the main product, which at the same time we're always trying to make this affordable for everyone, because ideally everybody should have one of these things. So, and then we have these free liner replacements. Every 6 months you get a free liner replacement, so that if, this material, if it gets a microscopic scratch, the signal can leak through, and then it doesn't work anymore for the hacking part. And so, or the tracking part too. And so, every 6 months you get a free liner, so that you don't have to buy a whole new product again. So, and we're doing that with computers, with laptops, with cell phones. So again, it's about infusing not only ethics, but also transparency and accountability to the companies, which in a perfect world, every company should be that way, right? Because we all want to make money, but we also want to be ethical about it. And not that the companies out there are not ethical, but there's a lot of that is unsaid that I would just rather, be upfront with.
Yes, yes. Thank you for being upfront, forthcoming, and transparent. You know, you know,
Yeah.
like they said, it moves the nation. You know, yeah. Much love, Ada. Thank you. I can't wait to do this again.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Lots of love to you. Bye, dear.
Bye bye.